Welcome, children, to the next English class. Before we go on to the lesson, let's see what this first slide has. You can see in the middle a little boy with a big question on him. Yeah, usually we have a lot of questions to ask someone or the other. The first small pic on top, you can see, usually you get such doubts in the exams, right? What is 15 into 5 is equal to? Then, when you're receiving a gift from someone, what is inside? A what question? You remember last year you had a poem on what if? What if I'm dumb at school? What if they close the swimming pool? What if I get beat up? Again, so many what questions. This year, you would also be having a very interesting story on Golu grows a nose. Now, this little baby elephant has a lot of questions to ask. Golu asks his tall aunt, the ostrich, why don't you fly like the other birds? Then he asks the hippo uncle, why are your eyes always red? Now, again, you can see the why questions. Yes, we always ask one or the other question to get an answer. Now, before we go to the story of three questions, let us know about the great writer. Three questions written by Leo Tolstoy. He was a Russian writer who is regarded as one of the greatest authors of all time. He is best known for his two longest works, War and Peace and Anna Karenina, which are commonly regarded as among the finest novels ever written. War and Peace, in particular, seems virtually to define this form for many readers and critics. Leo Tolstoy also achieved a world renowned as a moral and religious teacher. Russian writer has written three questions. There was a certain king who wanted to know answers to three questions. The reason is, if he knew the answers, he would be a fair and just king. Now, what are those questions that he wanted to ask? What is the right time to begin something? Which people should he listen to? What is the most important thing for him to do? Now, he wanted to know the answers to these three most important questions. So, he offered to give a huge sum of money to anyone who had answered. So he sent messengers far and wide, but those men gave replies which did not satisfy the king. Now the king was very curious to know answers to these three questions. He wouldn't sleep till he found the answers. So he decided to go to a hermit who lived in a forest. Now the king also thought if he would go in his king's attire, the hermit would know who he was. So he decided to go in disguise. When he went to the hermit's hut, he saw the hermit digging and digging. Now the king waited patiently and then asked him the same old three questions. The hermit did not reply, but continued digging and digging. Now the king, on seeing him, offered to help him. So he took the spade from him and he started to dig. Again, after some time, he asked the three questions to him. Again, the hermit did not reply. Soon a man came running. Both of them saw there was a man who was wounded very badly. He was bleeding. Seeing him, the king at once started washing and dressing, but the bleeding wouldn't stop. Again he dressed and redressed till the bleeding stopped. Soon he felt better and rested in the hut. Next morning the man got up and thanked the king and also asked the king's forgiveness. And the king gladly forgave him. He also sent his doctor to look after him and returned his property. Ah, he was wounded very badly. He was bleeding. Seeing him, the king at once started washing and dressing his wound with his handkerchief, but the bleeding wouldn't stop. Again he dressed and redressed his wound till the bleeding stopped. Soon he felt better and rested in the hermit's hut. Next morning the man asked the king forgiveness. The king wondered what for. The man explained to him that he had actually come to kill him, and the same person whom he wanted to kill had saved his life. The king was happy to hear that from his enemy. Soon he forgave him. He also sent his doctor to look after him and returned his property. Now the king did not forget the three questions that he had come to ask him. He asked the hermit again for the answers. Now the hermit smiled and just said that there is only one time that is important, and that time is now. It is the only time when one has any power to act. The hermit answered the second question by saying that the most necessary person is the person you are with at a particular moment. This is because no one knows what will happen in the future and whether we will meet anyone else. Now, the hermit's response to the third question was that the most important thing is to do good for the person one is with. This is because all are sent into this world for that purpose alone. Next. Now, there are some take home values for us. The first one is kindness. You could see the kindness of the king when he helped the hermit. Forgiveness was also seen in the king when he forgave the wounded man who was actually his own enemy. Humility, the king went in ordinary clothes in a very simple and humble manner. Last, obedience. The king obeyed and did what he had to, as the hermit had given him the instruction to dig. Yes, there are wonderful values that you could practice in your own lives: kindness, forgiveness, humility, simplicity, and obedience. When these values are taken up, then you too would become a wonderful being, just like the king who wanted to know the answers to the three questions so that he would never fail and he would be a very fair and just king. Thank you. For such videos, you can always subscribe my channel.